All right, well, welcome here and is writing custom Nagios plugins. Please welcome and make them feel welcome, Nathan Vonnahme.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. Let's get started. So, why would anyone want to extend the amazing array of plugins already available to you with Nagios? That gets back to, for me, that gets back to why I started using Nagios in the first place. I had read about Nagios, and my coworker that I shared duties with decided to go on vacation one time, and before he left, he gave me his list of everything he checks every day, and I was like, I'm not doing that. And while he was on vacation, I started implementing Nagios to take care of his checklist. And there were things on his checklist that were more involved than you can get with any of the normal check scripts, even though there are a lot of good ones. And it turns out that life is actually more complicated than whether or not a machine can ping or whether a certain port is responding to traffic. And so I've actually done probably at least as much with custom plugins as with the standard ones in our environment. We could really use any tool to make plugins. I've seen examples here at the conference of Shell and PowerShell and batch files and carrier pigeon. Not really, but I'm going to show examples starting in Perl because that I think is still one of the most robust environments. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. I've been playing with Node.js and JavaScript, so I'll show an example of that. That's kind of a little less crusty than Perl is getting these days. And then I'll show you an example using Autoit, which is should just kind of open your mind to the possibilities of what you can do with plugins. Okay. Anybody here use Perl normally? Yeah, so you know. It's awesome. I love Perl. One of the good things specific to Nagios is the Nagios plugin API in Perl. It's very well supported, and it provides a lot of the tools you need to make something that's not just a bare bones plugin that returns 0 or 1, but something that has documentation and is thresholds and performance data that's going to be easier for people after you or you in 6 months to figure out again. If you don't like Perl, don't worry. There's more to it than just the punctuation, but if you just translate the punctuation into other characters, then it'll be like whatever your language of choice is. Originally, last year, I did the same talk, and we tried to do a hands-on thing. If you want to follow along, start out with Perl. I noticed last year that a lot of people we're not, at this point in the conference, we're not ready to follow along, and so they're just observing, which is fine. There's a video of last year's talk already up if you want to go back, when you get back to your desk and work through these examples. And these videos will be up at some point too. So the place to start, regardless of your language, is the developer guidelines. This document really spells out the expectations that the community has had since, 2000, it says, the first copyright, for how plugins should behave. So when in doubt, make it match this document. And we're going to start out with a very simple script. We're going to write a script to check that a backup succeeded. Okay, we're going to make sure that our backup file is All right. Make sure that the backup file exists. So this is a full plugin in Perl. We're going to take the first argument off the command line. We're going to print OK if it exists. That's the -e flag, similar to shell. And we'll say it's critical if it isn't. Anybody see any problems with this? This will work great, right? We can save it and run it with one argument. We give it the name of a file. Then when we create that file, it's OK. Our backup is good, right? And then tomorrow, our zero-length foo.tar.gzip will also be OK. It will always be OK. It will always be a good backup. Yeah, but maybe a zero-length backup maybe isn't OK. Maybe a 6-month-old zero-length backup maybe isn't OK. You know, it's a little more complicated than you might guess on the first try. So we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to check that not only does it exist, but it's less than a certain number of hours old, and it's between a certain size range that we expect. Now, really, it would be good to check that it was a restorable backup or that there was something valuable in those that backup file, but we'll leave that to advanced users. We're also going to go from just using, a plain Perl script to using the Nagios plugin library, and we can show all the things that we can do with that to make it not just a hacked together little thing that you forget about and then have to figure out again in 6 months, but fully supported plugin that's ready to distribute. And actually dealing with these things like the arguments and the help documentation make up the majority of the code. So using the Nagios plugin, module gives you all those bells and whistles and cowbell too. Ton Voon and Gavin Carr, I think, are responsible for most of the plugin, and they have been great. I've worked with them on email and stuff, and Ton Voon is no longer, he was maintaining the whole plugins project, and he stepped away from that, but he's still using Nagios. So, all right, so this is the pain point with Perl and Nagios plugin is, I've noticed that, remember DLL hell from Windows 3.1 days, where you'd have one prerequisite and then the new software would require an older version of a DLL, and you'd get in this whole snarl. As far as I can tell, every environment has its own version of DLL hell. For Linux, it's the RPM packaging distribution system, and there are various solutions to that problem. For Windows, they've kind of gone with Windows Update to hide most of DLL hell from you, but you still might need multiple versions of .NET installed. And each new language these days has its own package manager for solving DLL hell. Anyway, for Perl, it's CPAN. You need to install Nagios plugin, and you need to have a working CPAN to do that. The hard part about this in production environments is often the proxy business, getting access to the internet, because we want to be able to download code from the internet and run it on our machines as root. But I guess that's kind of what Linux is all about, right? This example that I'm going to be walking through now is available at this URL. And actually, no, I started with the check stuff PLL, or PL is an example script from the Nagios plugin distribution. And you can use this to start any Perl plugin. It kind of has the normal stuff set up for you, so you can just change the middle of the plugin where the action happens. And we're going to be turning this sample script into our check backup example. The finished example is here.